So feel free to have a seat here. Who's going to go with her first?
I guess I can start.
Okay.
Yeah.
So go ahead and take Winnie there. Yeah. And you can grab your remote.
Come here.
And then I know you said you had started experimenting, right?
Yeah.
What was her working number when you started with her?
It's like 22, 23, 24-ish.
Okay, sounds about right. And where you
Yeah.
at currently?
What's that?
What's the number currently?
I gotta turn it on first.
Come here, wait, hey, sit down. Can you sit? No? Okay. Come here, sit. Thank you. Stay there. Probably should have done this before.
There you go. Green. Stay here. I'll turn it on 4.
It's going to go, we'll go to 15.
15? Okay.
Yep.
And is this tighten up? I don't know if you want to test her out.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay.
Then what we'll do here is pull down that puppy.
Yeah, she's just got a lot of it.
Yeah. So she pulls out there.
Yeah.
Alright. So I'll have you stand where you are. You're going to just, how you have your leash, go ahead and keep it shorter, like that.
Okay.
We're going to take a look at Winnie, and when I say tap, you're going to press that button, okay? Tap, tap, tap. Okay. So there, so then we start to see this.
Yep.
Right, okay, go to 18.
18? Okay.
This is what was happening.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Okay, so what you're going to do here is going to shorten the leash a little bit.
Come here, Winnie.
There we go. All right. So we're going to start at 18. That looks to be a good starting number.
Okay.
Okay. So what that is a shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She's going, I don't like this.
Shut down, like her laying down.
Yeah. I don't like this. I don't know what this is. So I'm going to just melt and escape from the world. Okay. So we see it all the time. It's not anything out of the ordinary. We do want to push her through that. Okay. So for our obedience to mean anything, there is no other option but compliance, right? Which sounds bad if you were to apply that to humans, because humans have choices, right? Humans have what we want to do, what we don't want to do, but not when it comes to your dog. Because let's say, and there was actually a trainer right there on the internet where the owners were working with an e-collar, and like the owner called the dog and like remoted the dog, and then she's like, "Oh my God, did you just shock that dog come to you?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then somebody said something, and she's like, "Well, it's not like the dog had a choice." And I'm like, well, when it comes to recall, there is no choice, because if your dog is running towards the street and it thinks it's a choice, your dog may continue into the street because you're getting by a car, right? There is no other option but compliance. So here, we're not going to be mean about this, but we're going to work Winnie through these things so that she learns that, okay, shutting down and trying to escape from this or even run from this is not an option. But if I just go with things, everything goes away, okay? So in the beginning, it can be a little rough. It's okay. Once she gets over it and we work with that stuff, that's what builds the reliability of the obedience. Okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to start with that leash walking exercise.
Yep.
I'm going to have you go ahead and get a little bit of slack here.
Okay. Not that much.
And go ahead and stand next to Winnie here so she's on your left. And take a look. A little bit more slack. That's pretty good.
Okay.
So you see how you have this kind of J shape here?
Yep.
And you see how it falls by her armpit right there?
Mhm.
So that tends to be the perfect length. Any lower than that, and she would get tangled up in it. So when we keep it up about armpit, it prevents that from happening, but still plenty of slack for her to make mistakes. Okay? So when I'm gonna have you go ahead and just walk that way. Oh wait, sorry. The turning exercise. I'll go over that with you. I know you watched the videos, but I'll do a quick recap. So here, two things that you really want to focus on are when I say the words turn and the word tail. Okay? So if Winnie here is on our left, and we're going to train her to walk on this side here, is every time Winnie gets ahead of you, when I say the word turn, you're going to 180 to your immediate right like this. Okay? Like that. So when I say turn, it's 180 straight the other way, all the way to your immediate right, like that. Also, you want to keep your momentum. People tend to stop before they turn, or turn after they stop. You don't want to do that. You want to keep your walking, okay? After I say turn, it's going to, so this is Winnie. Turn, tap, 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 good. Turn, tap, 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 good. Turn, right? We're going to keep repeating this process. So when I say the word tap, you'll actively press that button one time. So if I say tap, 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 that will be your rhythm. If I say tap, 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 that would then be your rhythm, okay? I might say other things like pull to your left. If she's trying to go to your right, you would keep walking forward and pull to your left as you tap to bring it over to your left side, okay? That's like the major stuff.
And when I was new with her, I got her to the point where she was coming and then she was like brushing her hand against my leg, trying to go between my legs.
Sure. So if that happens, right, because you'll be walking,
Yeah.
and when you go between your legs, as you're walking, you would pull
her
and
out.
tap.
Okay.
And the tapping is important because what you're teaching her is like if you go into these wrong areas, this goes off, but if you're right here in this pocket, nothing happens.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay? So I'll have you go. Ready? So go ahead and move towards me. Good. And okay, so actually do this. Go back the opposite way. To your right. There you go. And there we go. Good. And just relax your arm. Now here, you're gonna lightly pull forward. Yeah. Yeah. There, now go. Turn, there you go. Turn here and relax forward. Yep. 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 And forward. Good. Forward. Yep. 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 Forward. Yep. 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 Forward. Yep. Yep. Pull a little more forward. Yep. 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 Let's go to 21. There you go, a little bit of a pull, and tap, 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 24. Leg pull forward, tap, 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 tap. There you go, good girl. Go ahead and turn, tap, tap, tap. Tap, 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 forward, tap, 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 27. Tap, 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 30. And this is normal, by the way. At least more resistance. Tap, tap. Tap. So I can see a switch, right? All right. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. There you go. Pull. Tap. Tap, tap. Tap, tap. Tap, tap. Keep forward. Tap, tap. Tap, tap. Tap. There you go. Good girl. Good. Good girl. Good girl. And turn. Good. Tap. 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 Tap, tap, tap. A little pull forward. There you go. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. There you go, cat girl, good. Go ahead and turn. Tap. Good. Tap. 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 Right, tap. 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 Cat girl, tap. Almost tap. There you go, good girl. And turn. Good turn. Relax. Tap. Tap. A little bit of pull, a little bit of forward tension. Tap. 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 Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, 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 tap. Little pull. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Yeah, girl. Good. Good girl. Keep forward. Now turn. Tap. 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 Tap, tap, tap. A little bit of pull. Tap, tap. A little bit more. Tap, tap. Tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Yeah, girl. Good. Good. Forward. Tap, tap. There we go. Good. Now, I'm going to show you just a bit. There you go. Good. Yeah, I'll give you a little more leverage. Good. And slow turn here.
That's looking good.
Yeah. Good. Forward. Keep forward. Keep forward. Keep forward. Yep. 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 Good girl. Good. Good girl. Good girl. Now slow turn. Good. Keep forward. She's not about her there for a second. Good. Keep forward. Good girl, ladies.
Oh.
And And a girl, slow turn here. Yep. And forward. Yep. There she goes. Yep. Yep. And a girl. Good. Forward. There we go. Good. Yep. There we go. Good. Good girl. Good. And slow turn. Good. Keep it on nice and relaxed. Very good. Very good. Go ahead and keep forward. Good. Then slow turn. Right? Yep. Forward. There she goes. Good. Add a girl. Keep forward. Good. Keep forward. Yep. There she goes. Good girl. And slow turn. Relax that arm. Good. Now walk a little slower here. Slower to stop. Very good. All right. So what happens is when she feels the pressure, she goes, don't like this, don't want to do it. Okay? So we went incrementally from, what was it, 15? Or what did we start with? 18? 18, 21, 24, right? So eventually we hit 30. And we got a lot of vocalization. Okay? Vocalization doesn't always mean physical discomfort. Okay? It's more so in this case, emotional frustration, or like, I don't want to do this, and like a tantrum. Exactly. Because then once we broke through that resistance, you right away said like, oh, that's a lot better, right? So if the brain is in resistance, you're not going to teach anything. Okay? A e-collar, in my opinion, is the only tool that can make a dog think they're making a decision. Okay? She thinks she made the decision to comply. But really, it was you manipulating her through pressure, increasing pressure, to give in and go, fine, I'm going to do this. Once she goes, resistance is not an option, it allows the brain to then take in the information. So right off the bat, as soon as you did that, boom, right at your side, right? Which is what you try to teach her initially, right? So everything that you tried to do that first time before she locked up was there. But it wasn't coming, she wasn't doing it because she didn't want to do it. Once we break that, all of a sudden, like, okay, sure, I'll work it. Okay, I see this stuff happen all the time. So here, oh, sorry, I thought you were asking a question.
Oh, God.
So here,
Oh,
when we look at her posture, right, she's dipping her head, and how she's kind of holding herself here. All this stuff is normal in the beginning because no one likes this stuff, okay? All this stuff, the more you expose her, will start to go away, and you'll start to see just normal Winnie walking and enjoying the walks and stuff, okay? So when she was being compliant, the moment we saw her move forward, good girl, good, right? Is right away, I was putting out that positive energy, because yes, I liked what I saw. So here, when we do remote collar, because a lot of my clients don't like remote collar, they're only doing it because they like have to, because of dog behavior or whatever, is I'll tell them, if you don't like it, at least just be neutral or upbeat, but never like negative, or never like, oh, Winnie, it's time to train today, right? Because it's not the collar that she's actually responding to, it's more so your negative energy.
Okay.
So if you don't like something, she's not gonna like it, right? So like someone's like, hey, how's that movie? And you're like, well, right? As soon as they hear you say, well, they're like, oh, you didn't like it. So then their notion, or their kind of their association with that movie is already negative as it is, right? So same thing here with Winnie. So I'm always indifferent or upbeat, and the more you expose her to this, the more confident she's going to become, and you'll start to see just her head up and her walking, no problem. This is why we do heel first. If you put an e-collar on a dog and you just press the button with no baseline, their first instinct is typically to run away, okay, which we don't want her or want any dog to ever do, right? So here, we're using, so that the e-collar is making that moving behavior, so we're using a moving command to heel the teacher, excuse me, how this turns on and how it turns off, okay? As long as she's with you at your side, there's no pressure. If she puts on any resistance, pressure kicks in, but the moment she complies with it, pressure goes away. So she's learning, oh, I can control this, right? If I just follow Dad, and I'm not being a brat or resistant or whatever, nothing happens. And then she starts to go, oh, cool, I know the game now. And then you start to see her loosen up a bit more, okay? Walking also helps alleviate stress. So like me, myself, if I get too stressed, I like to go on a walk. I like to walk my dog. Same thing for the dog. So The e-collar can be building stress because, you know, you're applying it and you're teaching her, but then as she's actively walking, she's alleviating that stress as well. That make sense? Okay. We're going to do a few more of these walks here. So go ahead and move forward with Winnie. Yep. There she goes. Good girl. Look at that. Good girl. You know, slow to slow turn. Good forward. Yep. There she goes. Add a girl. Good. And then relax your leash. Good. Go ahead and do a slow turn to your right. Good turn. Nothing here. She's there. Good. She's walking with you. Good girl. And I'm going to have you keep going forward here, okay? Tap. There she goes. Tap forward. Tap. Keep forward. Good girl. Nice try. Yep. Keep forward as best you can. Now slow turn. Good. And we're going to go ahead and dip down. We're going to go down to 22. And forward. Tap. There she goes. Add a girl. Keep straight if you can. Good. Go ahead and slow to slow turn. Good. Go ahead and shorten your leash just a wee bit here. There we go. Good. Go ahead and pick up your pace a little. Tap. Good. Add a girl. Keep forward. Pull to your left. Tap. Good. Good. And slow to slow turn. Good. Go ahead and pick up your pace again. Tap. 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 Good girl. Good. Good. And slow to slow turn. Good. And forward. Good. Good turn. Going to pick up your pace a little. Tap forward, tap, 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 tap. Atta girl, good job. Good. There we go, good girl. And slow to slow turn. Good girl, good turn. Yep, tap forward, tap, 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 tap. Tap, 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 tap. Let's go to 25. Tap, 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 tap. 28. Tap, 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 tap. There she goes. Atta girl. Good. Good job, Winnie. And slow to slow turn. Good. Good. I'm going to try picking up your pace again. Yep. Pull to your left. Good job. Yep. Add a girl. And slow to slow turn. Good turn. Good turn. Good. Slow to slow turn. Good turn. Yep. I'm going to pick up your pace. Tap. 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 Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. And forward. Forward. Add a girl. Good job.
Can we move to the box? It might be, I think it slid down a little bit.
It's okay for now. As long as we got good contact, it's okay. And slow to slow turn. Good turn. Good. Go and pick up your pace a little. There she goes. Good girl. Then slow walk. Good. Then slow turn. Good. Go and pick up pace a little. Tap. Tap. A little bit of a pull forward. Tap. Atta girl. Good. Good job, Winnie. Good, and slow to slow turn. Good. Going to pick up your pace. Good, and slow to slow turn. Add a girl, then slow walk, and slow to stop here. Good. All right. So, very good. So we saw some of that resistance come back, right? And so earlier was 30, then we were able to break it to 22, but then she put up another wall. And then we went up to the 28 or something?
Yeah, we're
28, right? So, in the beginning, I would give this like typically a day or two, where she'll try to see it become less and less and less and less. And every time you break that resistance, she becomes more sensitive to the collar. Okay, so typically I'll go back down and then work my way back up as needed. Now, if you find that she keeps doing that she keeps resisting every time you go down lower, then she's learning the whole pattern of like, oh, if I comply, you go down lower, then you have to work your way back up again. Is that and then I just start keeping it at the number that I was at. So if it's like 30 or whatever, so that's, I don't know, there we go. Otherwise, yeah, so it does 2019, so that you go down lower, and then be resistant again to that breaking point from 30. So then I'll just keep it at 30 right off the bat. Okay. So otherwise, this is nothing out of the ordinary. It's just stuff all the time. Okay. So questions so far?
If you follow some
I mean, well, like after you keep going through, like she'll get more comfortable with it. She won't be like literally her head touching my leg every time.
Yeah, she's just trying to go in between the legs. It's like a,
Yeah. So important thing is, if she does go between her legs, if we just always pull her out and you do all the work, it can be a problem. Because she herself is not making the decision to remove herself. So I just give enough guide, exactly, and the tapping to make her flush out, so that she learns that the only thing to be is the other stuff. Okay? Dogs learn better in smaller chunks. So like here we do an hour-long lesson, but I stop and I talk to you and stuff to actually let her kind of decompress and also process everything that's happening. Okay? So when you're doing your training with her, I would do short 15 to 20 minute sessions a piece.
Okay.
At least 3, 4 is fine too. So if you did 2 and you did 2, that would be great. Because the more you expose her to it, the faster she's going to go with it. Most people tend to feel bad, or they tend to only promote the dog's kind of worse. Meaning like Winnie's like already over here, and we're wanting to keep her in this position as much as possible. Okay. So in the beginning, it's going to seem like a lot of tapping because it's something completely foreign to her. But then as you work with her and you're consistent with it, you'll find like, oh wow, we've not had to tap her in like 2 weeks because we're being very consistent about it. Okay. Also, that number is super important. Here we're at 28 currently in a relatively bland environment. That's most likely because of her nerves. Okay, you're having to override her emotional state with that physical power, that electronic power there, okay? You might find that as you work with Winnie more, that number might dip and she'll be like at a 14 or a 20 and being super responsive because she's sensitive, okay? Or you might find she's really stubborn and then in a couple of weeks you're at 40 because she's become kind of resilient to it. I've never had a dog get tough to the collar to the point where it wasn't okay, just to let you know, because people always ask, like, oh, the dog's never went higher, or they're getting too tough. I'm like, no. I'm like, everybody has a breaking point. Right. Okay? So, other questions?
so 20 minute increments is that like you do it every day, like
Yes, if you can do it, at least 3 times a day, you're getting very good
like an hour
progress.
every day. If you can.
Sure, yeah. Now, once she's trained, you can do like an hour-long walk or whatever, where you're not having to do smaller chunks because she already knows what to do. But in the beginning, your brains process things better in smaller pieces throughout the day. Okay. Other questions?
So we like, I mean, you see where Melissa lived, where you did the training with Nash there. We do let her off and like run around.
Sure.
Would you recommend not using if she's running around and like until we actually have the dog
Correct, yes, yes, yes. So the reasoning there would be, one, we already saw her apprehension to the collar as is, right? So the next 2 weeks are gonna be based on heel, today, this week, the next class is the second part of heel, and then that week, and then the third week we cover recall. And the reason for that is one, we ever see how sensitive she is to it, but two, again, a dog's first instinct is typically to run away, right? So like, let's say she's eating like food, and you're like, oh, gross, and you go to correct her, my concern would be, you correct her, and she's like, whoa, right? Because dogs learn things in pictures. So like right now, when you're with the leash and you're walking next to her, that's one very specific picture. So then when you get to the park and you try to correct her for something she doesn't not done that yet, she's likely to try to run off, okay? Now, if it's an emergency, because it's actually happened with Nash, is he took off on Melissa.
Yeah.
And she had 127 and because it was in the back of the street.
Yeah.
Okay, so if that happens, it's either you gamble for getting to the street or you gamble making a return.
Yeah.
But ideally, you know, trying to avoid that.
Okay.
But I don't have, like, if you've been fine with her going there, play with the dogs and stuff, I don't have an issue with it. Just don't incorporate the collar when she's off that leash.
Right.
Okay? Now, if she's on the leash, and you're standing like this, and maybe she's trying to like eat sticks or poop or something, you can correct her, because I'm not worried about her running away, because you have the exact leash there.
Yep.
Okay? Other questions?
I guess that it was going to be follow up is like, would you recommend like after maybe the first week, you know, we're walking, doing our training, but then like start incorporating her more towards the field where she is like, that's her place, that's how she plays, and like trying just to like all the other dogs over there, kind of be on the other side and actually start. Yeah.
Oh, sure, sure. So, yeah, what I would do is make it easy for yourself and Winnie in the beginning, and like do your normal ones.
Yeah.
And when you feel like, hey, this is really solid, maybe 3 days in, then you can try maybe walking on the outside of the crevice, right? With the dogs all playing there, and if that's easy for her, then you try walking in the crevice, and of course she's still on that leash.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a little bit more difficult if she's got the dogs like running and jumping at her and stuff like that, but technically, yes.
Okay.
That's how you start advancing your obedience very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we do here too with our pen. Like, once the dogs have enough training, we bring them to the pen and they'll be like feeling and laying them down when the dogs are playing around and all that stuff. But yes, we actually do that as you progress.
Got it.
Okay, other questions?
Not right now.
So one thing I was having you do, so we have the turn, correct? And then I was saying slow, and then slow turn. Do you know how I was doing that?
Just to keep her on the heel.
Correct, right? She was doing well.
Yeah.
She was following with you. So the only time you turn like this is when Winnie is already out of line.
Yep.
Okay? Because she's not paying attention. So we do that turn and tap. So for Winnie, the way that works is, if she gets ahead of you, she feels this. I don't like this. Dad's going that way.
Yep.
She catches up and disappears. But then she passes again. Oh, I don't like this. And then Dad's going that way. She catches up and goes away. So it's what I call a correct and redirect, right? I'm correcting her for going the wrong way, but I'm redirecting her by going the opposite way. So what people typically do is when the dog pulls, they'll go no, and either yank them back or remote them. The dog comes back, the dog looks at you and they're like, oh, we're going the same way. They don't understand that they're supposed to be walking side by side. So you have to make it very like blatant, where it's like, hey, you went that way, we're going this way. Okay, and we kept repeating that to eventually, boom, there she was, and we got to do that resistance. So that turn is very important. In the beginning, you know, you're turning quite a bit. But if Winnie's doing a really good job of following you and on that hip, you don't have to turn. You just keep going.
So the turning is really just for the redirect, not.
Correct, it's for the corrections to get her back into position. Now let's say you're walking from point A to point B. You're walking with Winnie. She gets ahead of you, you would turn, but it's like, I gotta go that way, so then do a slow turn, and then start walking back in the original direction. So you might look crazy for a little bit. Now, when you're doing this, let's say you're at 25, and every walk is 30 turns. It's not getting better. Okay, that tells me 25 is what?
Too low.
Too low. So I tried 28. Then 30 turns becomes 20 turns, but it's still 20 turns. 31. 20 turns becomes 10 turns, right? 34. Then it becomes 1 turn every other day. I go, okay, that's a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
You try 34. Then it becomes 1 turn every week, 1 turn every couple of weeks. Then that's how you learn when you're at the appropriate number. Because once you get it in, like at the right number, boom, easy peasy. Okay, once the concept. It's pretty straightforward. And for me personally, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to get the concept. Okay? Then it comes down to what number is going to be important enough for her to respect that concept in that particular setting. Okay, so if you're at Travis, it could be 38. Maybe you walk to Oz, maybe it's 45. Then you're here, it's 30. Okay, so once you recognize that, that's the biggest thing that holds people back, is that they're apprehensive about bumping the number because they feel bad. But the way we're doing it is very incremental, right? The reason for the incremental increase is one, this is completely foreign to her, but two, it allows you to see logically just what the dog's breaking point is. Okay, so at this time, let's say every walk you always end up on 45, and then at 45 she's perfect. But everything below that, it's like crazy. What does that tell me? Start at 45, right? So each walk that you do, you're like experimenting, and you're saying, what's the number going to be? So at the end of every walk, you end up on 45. After a week, it's safe to assume I can start off at 45, and that walk's going to be perfect from the get-go. Does that make sense? So as you do this stuff, it makes just like logical sense. It's more so the emotional component that people feel bad about things. That's what kind of keeps them back. Okay? Questions?
I feel like when I'm, she's probably gonna be pulling to the grass or,
Sure.
like that, so that's just.
So then you keep, so like if this was grass, if she's pulling to the side, you have two options. You can technically keep walking and tap until she comes into that leg and you keep pulling forward, or you can also do that turn
Just turn around.
to bring her back to your side again. Okay? Other questions? Or do another little stretch and we'll swap over it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, the only times, at least, she pulls with me, but like, most of the time she pulls, and then it's like, she has to poop.
Oh, sure.
So, but like, I try to like, keep her here, like, without using the collar, I still try to keep her there, and then she's pulling, and then, there's time for her to recognize it, and then just thinks she's trying to get the grass, and then, she poops on the sidewalk.
Yeah, so what I would do here is the collar's going to allow you to correct that, right? And you would want to. And then if I've learned, like typically what she does is because she has to poop, I will keep walking, correct, bring her back, walk a little bit more, come to a stop. Winnie, can I say the word break, when you're done? Break, and then let her go poop. Okay, so I'm just putting it in our terms.
But then if it's like, because there's times where she pulls and she wants to go in the grass, just because she wants to.
Sure.
But then there's the time where she actually has to move, so it's like,
yeah, because she's a puppy still.
yeah, so I don't know how to like.
What I would do, because a 15-minute walk isn't that long, okay, is I would start off with a potty break, she pees, maybe she doesn't poop, and I go, we're walking now.
Okay.
I walk. And if she pulls, I keep correcting until she's on my hip. And then when I decide 15 minutes at the end, okay, you can go, right? And then maybe she poops. But maybe she had to poop within that time frame. So what she's going to learn is, look, I'm giving you an option at the beginning, and you'll get an option at the end. Take either one of them, because there may not be one in the middle. Okay? So like my Chihuahua was notorious for peeing on 100 things on a walk, right? So then now he knows to pee at the beginning, sometimes in the middle when I give him the opportunity, and at the very end. Because every time he tried to pee, I would correct him. So then he's like, oh crap, I only get it several times. And they will pick up on that pattern. And the next thing you know, you'll take her out and she'll just do everything because she wants to go on that walk.
Yep.
Okay? If she happens to stop and just poop, it is what it is. You gotta go, you gotta go. I clean it up, throw it away. But for the most part, if she's just pulling to the side, I keep walking correct because, like you said, sometimes it's she's gotta go. Sometimes it's I just want to sniff around.
Right.
Okay? Other questions? Yeah, very good. We're gonna do another little stretch and then we'll swap handlers. Our number is currently 28, correct?
28.
Let's go ahead and go back down to that 22.
Okay.
And go ahead and move forward. Yep. Yep. Atta girl. Turn. Good. Forward. There we go. Good. Pull to your left. Good. Keep straight. Let's go ahead and go down to 14. Good. Slow to slow turn. Good. Atta girl. Tip. Good. Then slow to slow turn. Good turn. Tip, tip, tip. Atta girl. Good.
Good girl, Winnie.
So now that's on 14. So a little bit more compliant for the resistance. That's good. Good. Ready to turn. Good turn. Good.
Good girl. Good girl, Winnie.
Good. And then slow to slow turn. That dog over there is Winnie too.
Oh, really?
That puppy. I have 3 Winnies on my calendar right now.
Oh, wow.
I got her, and there's a retriever in your guys' area too.
Really?
She's a puppy, yeah. Good, and slow to slow turn. Actually, I have 4 Winnies now.
4 Winnie.
Yeah, I know. And I've never actually trained a Winnie before.
I was gonna say, I didn't think it was like that.
Yeah, I got 2 retrievers with the name Winnie, and I just have a pit that started whose name is Winnie. Good. Turn, good.
Is she very much aware that Ray is controlling that remote?
No, dogs don't think to that degree.
Okay.
Now slow to stop here.
She doesn't see that remote or anything like that.
Correct. Now dogs can tie remote is connected to the e-collar, but they cannot tie that you were the one who. Correct. Okay, let's go to swap handlers there. That was very good.
This is the next.
Okay,
The
yeah.
puppy one.
Yeah.
This turns it, like the,
Okay.
so we're at 14, this makes it, so hit that button.
There you go. Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Winnie.
Yep.
Okay.
And then what you can do too is, since he keeps bumping into you, right, is I'll take this box
Oh, move to that side.
and move to the other side so you're not getting bruised knees, because that will happen. Here we go. Great, good girl. So then here, go ahead and turn your immediate right there. There we go, good. We do nothing there, go ahead and relax that arm. Good. Keep forward. Then you're gonna slow turn to your right. Good turn. Good. Good turn, relax. There you go, good. Keep forward. You're good, keep forward. There she goes, atta girl. Atta girl. Go ready to turn. Good turn, nothing here because she turns with you. Good girl, Winnie. Go ahead and pick up the pace a little.
Oh, yeah.
Relax your arm. There you go. Good. And slow turn to your right. Good turn. Now you're going to slow walk here, but keep walking. Slower. Keep forward, keep forward, keep forward, keep forward. Yep, there she goes. Good. Slow walk some more. Now here, pull to your left as you move forward and tap.
Yeah.
There we go. Good. And then relax. Good. Good. Going to pick up your pace a little. Good. Slow turn. Good turn. Yep. Good girl. And you're going to slow walk and slower to stop here. Very good. I'm going to pause right there for a moment. All right. So when I had you go super slow originally, she stopped. Right? Now we could have tapped there.
Uh-huh.
But what I wanted her to learn was, her stopping wasn't necessarily wrong. She's like, okay, you're going really, really slow. So I really need to move with you. And that tension, had she resisted it, we would have tapped for sure. But as soon as she felt it, she ran right up to that leg. Okay? So now we're really starting to learn that pressure on, pressure off concept, right? There's pressure on when she's not in the right positioning, pressure off when she's in that pocket. So now she's going, oh, I can avoid this. I just need to be in a certain positioning, right? And you see how quickly that transferred over, right? You didn't do anything. It happens all the time, okay? So with the way that I fix the remote collar, let's say you guys do your homework, Winnie's doing really well, and then you decide to get a dog walker or something like that, and they don't have to, but let's say you wanted them to reinforce the training, it would transfer over just as easily. As long as they learn to push that button and turn the opposite way,
Yeah.
you would see Winnie walk with that person within 1 minute. like that,
Yep.
okay? So here, we're now at 14, correct?
Yep.
So each time we were breaking that resistance earlier, and I think we saw a little bit with you at the very end,
Yeah.
is 14 actually at her forward, right? So she's also learning, if I'm compliant at these lower levels, it won't escalate. Okay? And that's how she'll start to like, base those decisions. Okay? So the reason why I went lower is because I was seeing just how like, she was overreacting just a little bit. And that was telling me too much power now, like she was getting more sensitive to it. And then we just adjusted it. Okay? Don't worry about making mistakes because you're good at making mistakes. Winnie tells you what's too much and what's too little. So remember, if you're on those walks and you're like, man, I came 100 times, it's too little, okay? But if you remote her and she goes, probably too high, okay? So you want to go down low. I'm going to go ahead and walk a little bit more. Go ahead and go forward. Yep, there we go. There she goes. I had a girl. Good, and turn. Good, turn. Yep, keep forward. Add a girl, Winnie. Good. Good, slow to slow turn. Yep, good. Go ahead and pick up your pace here. Go ahead and slow down. Good, go ahead and slow turn here. Tap. There she goes. Got a little distracted, it's okay. Keep forward. Yep, keep forward. You're good. Keep straight, keep straight. Go ahead and slow to slow turn. Good, and forward. Go ahead and slow down to a stop. Add a girl. Go ahead and take 5 steps.
What's that?
Take 5 steps. Yep, hold right there. That's so here, lightly pull out here. You're good. I was gonna say use your leash to pull her out. That's okay. Go ahead and take 1 big step. Right there. Good girl. Okay, so we'll pause right there. So, my style of field is very strict. I take 1 step, you take 1 step, I take 5 steps, you take 5 steps. We also get the automatic sit. This has not been taught formally. She just sat down on her own choice. Next class we'll teach it formally. Okay. But when I cue that word heel, that's the level of tightness that I'm wanting, and that's what makes it meaningful. Okay. People tend to address or think of leash walking in like the dog doesn't pull that much, and it's not about whether they're pulling or how much they're pulling. It's either they're pulling or they're not pulling. It's very black and white. Okay. So heel, pull, glue to that head. But if I say break, then technically, all this can matter. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Once you start this walking exercise, you wouldn't, like let's say when you got ahead of you a bit, you don't want to let that go. That has to be corrected. Okay? Because if you go, that's not too bad because she's not like how she used to be, now you're creating a gray area, and the next thing you know, he's going to be pulling all over the place again. Okay? So whenever we start this exercise, it's very, very important that we reinforce it to the degree that it was taught.
Okay.
Otherwise, it would create confusion. Okay. Now, right now, we're not saying heel. We're simply teaching the concept of heel. Okay. So when you're out with Winnie for the walk, you're gonna start with that potty break, and then when you're ready, you start walking. Tap. That should bring her to your left, and at that moment, the healing exercise has to be good. Okay. She doesn't need words. She's going to just associate, hey, when I feel that tap, I should walk with the left hip. And then you just keep walking. So here, if it wasn't for these walls, you'd most likely just have kept going, right? Because she was doing really well. Exactly. So when you go on your normal walks, of course, you can, if you have like a route, or if you want to change it up and like go all over the place, just make sure that she's staying on that hip. Okay? Now, very common in the beginning, when you're making your way back home or when you're close to home, the dogs will start to pull ahead. Because they're going, I'm done, right? You're not any rules to the walk. I'm done. I want to get home as soon as possible. So I would assume that with Winnie here, okay? So what I do is I suggest walking 5 minutes, straight away from home and give yourself 15 minutes to walk back home.
Okay.
to correct the forging. And then you would just incrementally bump that number until you're able to walk home with no issues.
Okay. And should we be like constantly, oh, good job, Winnie, you know?
Oh, you don't
yeah,
have
like-
to.
Okay.
I did it
Matter.
today, yeah.
Okay.
I did it today because of the resistance stuff.
Okay.
But really, like when I work with dogs, I
Should
actually
be
don't say
like
anything.
constant positive reinforcement.
Right.
Okay.
So, I don't mind like a good or anything like that, because the part of the heel is focused, or calm focus, right? And and she was doing really well with it, but like for some dogs, when the owner's like, good job, like all this stuff, the dogs are
Yeah.
bouncing, the next thing that you know, they're all over the place again. And I tell them, like, you can't have an excited, focused dog. You have to, it's calm focus, right? So if we see that inhibiting her, then I'd say, you know, don't worry about the praise, she'll get it, because when you remove the pressure, that's technically the reward. Okay? Do you have a question?
No.
Let me think here. So we talked about the walking back. Oh, so I have my 3-tap or 3 correction rule. So earlier, when she was resisting, I was going tap, 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 right? So you can actually create more pressure without raising the number by repeat or by quick bursts. Exactly. So I'll either go tap, 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 bump it, tap, 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 bump it. Let's just keep repeating that pattern. So eventually the dog goes coming, and I go good, 42, and then dip down if needed. Okay. If you're doing your corrections like the turns, it would be turn tap, that's 1, turn tap, that's 2, turn tap, that's 3. I would bump it. Because you know what I'm saying? Every 3 turns, if you tap and she just, I get some dogs that just keep going every single time. Right off the bat, I know it's not enough. I just bump it every 3 turns so that you get to that answer much faster. Okay? And for a girl like her, I'd probably go in jumps of like 3, maybe 5. 5 if she's super distracted, but I think 3 with her sensitivity level should be more than enough. And then as you get more comfortable with it, and as you see her get more comfortable with it, you'll start finding yourself just kind of going up and down without any real kind of like, how do you say, thought process, because you can just see it right off the bat. Okay? Questions?
More so like with the collar, like, you know, you put it up pretty high and then you pull the skin down, but like if, for instance, like, we have a notch on there too, but if it's like not high enough, like, could that then fluctuate to the number?
Sure. So typically, so the reason why we do a high is more sensitive, requires less power. At the base, less sensitive, requires more power.
Right.
Okay, so we can get more with less up top. Otherwise, if it lands at the base for neck, you know, it may just change your numbers a bit,
Right.
but it's not going to be detrimental.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
Do you say we kind of let her rest tonight since this was?
Yeah.
I would know, like, you just get out of this and then start right away, or do you start tomorrow morning?
No, you know, if there's like a third, like an evening walk, we do an evening walk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No, yeah, so, it's, like hearing discussions laying down and stuff, like this is very mentally exhausting. Okay, like a lot of my, you can talk to Melissa and ask her, you know, she'll tell you to mash the cats out
Yeah.
after training because it's such.
Melissa said she would pass out after.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because I forgot I was talking to you yesterday, and we were talking about this very thing. And when I first started dog training, you know, 10 years ago, you know, I only had like 2 to 3 clients, and it was exhausting because I wasn't used to reading, you know, the humans and the dogs and all that stuff. But I've been doing this for so long now that now it's like it's no chore for me. But super common when the owner's like, man, my dog passed out for like 3 to 4 hours after the first class. And then every class after that, the dog just knocks out. Because it's very mentally stimulating and exhausting. But it's not going to overwork her or anything like that. Because so here, there was more pressure put on her because we had to break resistance. And we had to increase the exercise. You go home tonight, later tonight, you go for your walk. I doubt it would be as crazy because we already got that core in, right? You would find, hey, I actually walked for 5 blocks and I didn't have to do anything with Winnie. She was perfect. So it's not overwhelming anymore because you're actually able to keep the moving forward. Okay. So remember, you're only turning abruptly when she gets ahead of you. If you need to come to a stop or come to a turn, always make sure to slow down. That's why I was going slow turn, right? To give Winnie the opportunity to match her pace and stuff. If you just abruptly turn and she's doing really well, walking with you, it's technically unfair.
Okay.
So you guys drove here, correct?
Yeah.
So what do you do before you stop?
You slow down.
wait before you turn. Slow down, right? To let others know
Yeah.
something's changing. Same thing for Miss Winnie here. For the second class, we'll add in the formal heel word,
Okay.
and there's also going to be specific leg movements that we're going to cover to let Winnie know, if you're turning left, if you're turning right, and all that stuff, because they communicate through body language, and it just helps make things a bit more clear to her, because you know what you're doing when you go for those walks. You know you're going to walk to Trader Joe's, you're going to walk
Right.
to Travis, or whatever. She knows that.
Yeah.
So it's very important to have this communication, so that, and it's like, how to say, like, the remoting is only there if she's getting out of line, but it's really you reinforcing, but then using your body language to communicate with her, like, now we're stopping, now we're turning left, now I'm gonna pivot and go back the opposite way. And it's usually much harder for the owners than it is for the dog.
Yeah.
So, okay?
Okay.
Anything else? Good. She did a good job.
After we do it more, I'm sure, but.
Yeah, I don't suspect that you're gonna see more of that resistance, but if you do, you know how to work through it. Giving that guidance forward, and then as soon as she moves, just boom, break away and moving as well.
Yep.
To let her know, like, yes, that's what we need you to do, okay? If you wanna end with like something to help her release stress, maybe you walk, come back, and then end with some free time with Travis or whatever,
Yep.
that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
When you put the collar on, I suggest putting it on 15 minutes prior,
Okay.
then going for your walk, leaving it on 15 minutes after, and then removing it.
Got it.
So that she doesn't catch on to the pattern of collar means
Got it.
immediate,
Yeah.
training, whatever. You can also put it on her during the day at home and not do anything with it, just to get her acclimated to it.
Yeah.
If you take her to Travis, feel free to leave it on, but don't do anything with it. So she starts to associate like, oh, like I get to do fun things with this thing as well.
Yeah.
Okay?
We
It's-
We had it on and started playing and just.
Yeah.
Good. Get yourself getting used to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Continue with that.
Yeah. So every time we take her out, it's pretty much on.
Yeah, okay. If she could be wearing it for longer than 2 hours, which I would doubt at this point, you do want to rotate it because with 2 probes, you can develop pressure sores.
Okay.
It's from 2 things poking at the neck, it's not from stimulation. So every 2 hours I rotate it. Otherwise, there shouldn't be an issue. Also, anytime you put it on, I would suggest swapping sides,
Got it.
because if you always use the same spot, the same thing can happen because of the probes.
Gotcha.
Okay? Anything else? Good job.
Good job, Winnie. Good girl. Yeah.
She's like, I hate this place.
Well,
So,
maybe it's good the next time we in the park.
Yeah.
Come back here and be like, wait a minute.